Elias had always believed that life on the remote colony of Thera 7 was ordinary. Every day, he woke up to the orange glow of the sun rising over the jagged mountains that lined the horizon. He worked as a scientist in a small lab, studying the strange plants and minerals that the planet offered. Life was quiet, almost peaceful, until the day the sky turned red and the colony shook under the attack of alien raiders. The aliens came without warning. They were massive, armored creatures with eyes that glowed like molten metal. Their ships descended from the atmosphere with a humming roar, firing beams that tore through buildings. People ran screaming through the streets. Buildings crumbled and fire spread quickly through the wooden structures of the colony. Elias froze, staring at the chaos, unsure of where to run. He grabbed a small backpack, stuffing it with notes, samples, and a few personal belongings. His heart pounded. His scientific mind raced, trying to find a pattern in the attack, a way to survive. But everything seemed chaotic, impossible to predict. He ran through the narrow streets, stepping over debris and fallen bodies until he came to the colony's main plaza. It was here he saw her for the first time. She moved differently from the aliens. Graceful, fast, and calm, she seemed almost unreal. Her skin shimmered slightly under the sunlight, pale like moonlight, and her eyes were dark, deep pools that seemed to look right through him. Elias froze, unsure if she was another alien or something else entirely. The creature that had been chasing him skidded to a stop just behind him, its claws scraping against the ground. Elias' legs trembled. He closed his eyes, waiting for the end. Then a shadow moved in front of him, fast and sudden. A dark figure leaped with impossible speed and precision. The alien raider screeched and fell to the ground, its body crumpling unnaturally. Elias opened his eyes. She was standing there, tall and elegant, her presence commanding. She looked at him briefly and then at the other raiders who were regrouping. In an instant, she moved again, faster than anything he had ever seen. The aliens fell one by one, and within moments the immediate threat was gone. The plaza was quiet except for the smoke and the faint crackle of fire. Elias stared at her in disbelief. What are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. She looked at him with an unreadable expression. "There is little time," she said softly. Her voice was musical calm, but there was urgency in it. "They will return. You must come with me if you want to survive." She moved with an ease that was impossible to match, her long coat flowing behind her. Elias struggled to keep pace, but she occasionally slowed for him, watching him carefully. Finally, they reached a hidden tunnel beneath a collapsed building. It smelled of damp earth and metal. She gestured for him to enter. Inside the tunnel, the sounds of the attack faded. The air was cooler here, and Elias could finally think. He tried to catch his breath. "Who are you?" he asked again, this time more calmly. She hesitated for a moment. "I am the last of my kind," she said. "A vampire, but I am not your enemy. You are human, and I intend to protect you. And soon, you will have to decide if you are ready to inherit what I can give you. It can give life, strength, and power beyond what your kind has ever known. But it comes with responsibility. Once you take it, you cannot go back." He wanted to ask questions to understand how this could be real, but her presence alone made him realize that there was no time for hesitation. The aliens could return at any moment. She extended her hand, a small vial glowing faintly in her palm. "Take it," she said. "If you want to survive, if you want to protect your people, you must drink. I will guide you." The liquid inside shimmered like liquid moonlight. His heart raced. He thought of the colony, of the people he cared about, of the destruction outside. And then he thought of the possibility, what he could become, what he could do to change the course of events. He took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll do it," he said. She smiled faintly, almost like a shadow of relief. "Then drink." His strength surged, and he felt alive in a way he had never known. The vampire watched him closely, her eyes reflecting both approval and concern. "Good," she said softly. "Now you are ready." But instead of fear, he felt a calm determination. He turned to her. "What do I do now?" he asked. "First," she said, "we survive, then we protect. You are no longer just human. You are something more. The galaxy will notice, and it may fear you. But fear is not what you should worry about. Power without purpose is dangerous. We must use this wisely." He was amazed at how easily she navigated the landscape, her knowledge seemingly limitless. As they worked together to rescue trapped colonists and guide them to safety, Elias began to feel a strange sense of unity with her. She was not just a protector. She was a mentor, a guide into a world he had never imagined. And as they moved from place to place, the aliens' attacks became less effective. Where humans had once been prey, they were now moving with precision. guided by the abilities Elias had inherited. By the time night fell over Thyra 7, the immediate threat had been pushed back, at least temporarily. The colony was damaged, but many lives had been saved. Elias stood on a cliff overlooking the settlement, his senses still heightened, feeling the wind on his skin, hearing the subtle movements of creatures in the distance. The vampire joined him, her eyes reflecting the twin moons above. "You have done well today," she said. "But this is only the beginning. The galaxy is large, and danger is not limited to this planet. There will be others who wish to test you, to challenge you, to destroy what humans have built. Are you ready for that? And I will learn to use this gift the right way." He had been given something extraordinary, something that would change him forever. And though he did not yet understand the full extent of what lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: his life and the fate of those around him would never be the same again. As the night deepened, he felt a strange sense of calm. The blood had changed him, yes, but it had also awakened something within, a strength, a purpose, and a determination to rise above the ordinary. For the first time in his life, he felt that humanity, even in the farthest corners of the galaxy, could stand strong against the impossible. And somewhere in the shadows, the last vampire watched him, knowing that the first chapter of a new story had just begun. Elias had barely slept since the events at Thyra 7. His body still buzzed with energy, every sense sharper than ever. He could hear the faint hum of distant engines, the whisper of wind through cracks in the rocks, even the subtle movements of animals far below the cliffs. He had never imagined life could feel so vivid, so alive. The vampire's blood had awakened something within him, something both powerful and terrifying. The colony was slowly recovering. Survivors had gathered in temporary shelters, working to put out fires and repair damaged structures. People stared at Elias with a mixture of awe and fear. Some whispered that he was no longer just a man. Others said the aliens would return and that he would be the one to face them. Elias felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. He was no longer just a scientist. He was something else entirely. The vampire moved beside him silently, her presence both reassuring and unsettling. She had saved him, guided him, and now seemed to watch his every move, almost like a guardian. "You are stronger than you realize," she said quietly, her voice calm but filled with authority. "But strength alone is not enough. You must learn to control it, to use it wisely. Patience, first we must prepare. Your enemies will not wait while you learn." "Do you feel it?" she asked. Elias nodded. He could sense the ship's engines, the vibrations in the ground, even the intentions of the beings inside. It was as if he could hear their thoughts, their fear, and their aggression. "I can feel them," he said, amazed. "It's like I know what they are thinking." "Your senses are heightened, but you must learn to focus. Power without control is dangerous." Every movement felt natural, almost like remembering something he had always known but forgotten. As night fell, the scout ship descended closer to the colony. The vampire and Elias moved to the top of a cliff, hidden from view. The ship's engines hummed softly, but Elias could sense the tension inside, the fear that something unknown awaited them. "Do you trust yourself?" the vampire asked. Elias took a deep breath. "I think so," he said, though doubt lingered in his mind. "Then act," she whispered. With a sudden movement, Elias leaped from the cliff, landing silently on the scout ship's hull. His enhanced strength allowed him to cling to the metal surface, moving toward the control panel. Inside, the alien crew reacted too slowly. One tried to grab him, but Elias moved faster than their eyes could follow. Within moments, he disabled the ship's engines, sending it crashing harmlessly into the rocky terrain below. The vampire watched from above, her eyes reflecting pride. "Well done," she said. "You are learning quickly, but remember, Elias, this is only the beginning. Others will come, stronger, smarter, and more dangerous." He began to organize defenses, teaching them to work together, to use their environment, and to prepare for future attacks. As days passed, the aliens did not return immediately. Elias used this time to train, to hone his abilities, and to learn from the vampire. She shared stories of her kind, of battles fought long before humans even reached the stars. She taught him strategy, patience, and the importance of morality. "Power is meaningless without purpose," she said. "You must decide what kind of protector you wish to be." Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, seen as fragile and unremarkable. But with guidance, intelligence, and courage, they could rise above any challenge. He felt a new sense of pride in his kind, a belief that humans were capable of greatness. One night, as Elias and the vampire walked through the recovering colony, they encountered a group of survivors huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. "He is no longer just human," one said. "They say he moves faster than a ship, sees farther than our scanners, and strikes with the force of 10 men." He had not asked for fame or legend, he only wished to protect those around him. But the whispers of admiration and fear confirmed that his actions were making a difference. Suddenly, a new threat appeared. A larger alien vessel descended from the sky, far more advanced than the scout ship. Its design was sleek, almost organic, and it radiated power. Elias could feel its presence, its intent to destroy everything in its path. The vampire placed a hand on his arm. "This is your next challenge," she said. "Are you ready?" Elias focused, using his enhanced senses to analyze the vessel. He noticed weak points in the hull, patterns in the way the alien crew moved, and openings in their defenses. He could feel their fear, their confusion, and their surprise at the human who had defeated the scout ship. When the ship fired, Elias was ready. He moved faster than the beams, leaping from place to place, avoiding destruction with ease. He landed on the vessel's surface, disabling weapons and systems one by one. The vampire followed, striking with precision, her movements complementing his perfectly. Together, they disabled the alien ship, forcing it to retreat. The colony erupted in cheers. Elias stood with the vampire beside him, feeling the weight of victory and responsibility. He realized that his abilities were not just a gift, they were a duty. Humans had the potential to rise above fear, to face impossible odds, and to protect their own. Days turned into weeks, and Elias' reputation grew. Aliens who had once seen humans as weak now regarded them with caution. Colonies across nearby star systems began to look to Thera 7 as a symbol of hope and strength. Elias continued to train, to teach, and to plan. The vampire remained by his side, guiding him, watching him, and ensuring that he did not lose himself to the power within. One evening, as Elias sat atop the cliffs overlooking the colony, he thought about the future. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers he could not yet imagine, but he felt a sense of determination he had never known before. He was no longer just a man, he was a protector, a symbol, and perhaps one day a leader. The vampire joined him, her eyes reflecting the stars above. "You have grown stronger," she said, "but remember, Elias, strength alone is not enough. The galaxy will test you, challenge you, and fear you. It is how you respond that will define you and humanity. Others will come, and they will not be forgiving. You must be prepared not just to fight, but to inspire, to lead, and to protect. Humans have the potential to rise, Elias. You are proof of that." There would be battles, losses, and challenges that would test every ounce of his strength and wisdom. But for the first time, he felt a deep sense of purpose. He had been given a gift, a chance to shape the destiny of his kind, and he would not waste it. As night deepened, Elias stood with the vampire beside him, looking at the stars and the galaxy beyond. He felt alive, empowered, and ready. The humans of Thera 7 were no longer helpless. With courage, intelligence, and determination, they could face anything. And Elias, the human who had inherited the power of the last vampire, would lead them into a future that the galaxy had never seen before. And somewhere in the shadows, the vampire watched him, knowing that the next chapter of their journey was about to begin. A chapter where humans would rise, legends would be born, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The weeks that followed were filled with a tense mixture of preparation and vigilance. Elias had grown accustomed to the surge of power flowing through him, but he understood that strength alone would not secure victory. The galaxy was larger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Rumors of his abilities had spread far beyond Thera 7, reaching worlds he had never seen. Aliens who once considered humans weak were now cautious, and some even feared the human who moved faster than ships, struck harder than the fiercest warriors, and survived against impossible odds. Elias spent his days organizing defenses across the colony. Using his heightened senses, he mapped the terrain, discovering natural choke points and hidden passages that could protect the citizens. He trained groups of survivors, teaching them to work together to anticipate threats and to defend their homes. While he could easily overpower any attacker, he knew that human ingenuity and teamwork were what would truly ensure survival. The vampire remained at his side, silent and observant. She had grown quieter in her teaching, allowing Elias to make decisions, guiding him only when necessary. Her presence, however, was constant, a reminder of the responsibility that came with the power he had inherited. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the mountains, Elias sensed something unusual. Far above the horizon, a fleet of alien ships moved with precision and speed unlike anything he had encountered. The pattern of their approach was deliberate, strategic. These were not simple raiders, they were a coordinated force intent on testing him. "They have come," Elias said, his voice calm but firm. His eyes narrowed as he watched the vessels. "And they are not afraid of what they might lose." The aliens descended, their ships forming a precise formation in the sky. They fired beams that struck the outskirts of the colony, creating explosions and panic among the survivors. Elias leaped into action, moving faster than the beams could travel. He dismantled weapons, disabled engines, and used his enhanced strength to shield civilians from harm. The vampire followed him, her movements fluid and exact. Together, they became a whirlwind of action, protecting the colony while neutralizing the attackers. Elias realized that his new abilities allowed him to multitask in ways humans could never naturally do. He could anticipate enemy movements, react instantly, and coordinate with the vampire to maximize efficiency. As the battle raged, Elias noticed something surprising. The aliens were intelligent, adaptive, and cautious. They had studied the colony, likely knowing of the scout ship's defeat, and they were testing him before committing to full-scale destruction. This realization sparked an idea. If he could manipulate their expectations, he could turn their strategy against them. He leaped from the top of a burning building to a nearby ridge, surveying the battlefield. The aliens were advancing in predictable patterns, assuming he would protect every point equally. Using his enhanced perception, Elias focused on their central ship, the vessel that seemed to command the rest. He analyzed its weak points, its engines, and the behavior of the crew inside. "Watch and learn," he whispered to the vampire. With careful precision, Elias began to lure portions of the fleet into traps. He disabled ships one by one, striking from unexpected angles, using the terrain to his advantage. Rocks, cliffs, and crumbling buildings became tools in his strategy. The survivors watched in awe as he moved through the battlefield with supernatural grace, their fear turning into hope. Hours passed, and the tide of the battle began to shift. Aliens who had assumed superiority now hesitated, realizing that this human was unlike any they had encountered. Elias' intelligence, combined with his inherited strength, made him a formidable opponent. The vampire fought alongside him, but she allowed him to take the lead, knowing that human determination and ingenuity were becoming his greatest weapons. Finally, the central alien ship descended, its energy weapons trained directly on Elias. He knew that one wrong move could destroy him or the colony. Focusing intensely, he leaped with incredible speed, striking the ship's hull at precise points he had identified earlier. Metal bent and engines faltered. Sparks flew as the ship crashed into the mountainside, immobilized. The remaining vessels, seeing their leader defeated, hesitated and then retreated into the night sky. The colony had survived. Elias stood on a ridge, breathing heavily, the adrenaline of battle still coursing through his veins. The survivors cheered, running to him, embracing him, and thanking him. But Elias barely noticed them. His mind was already analyzing what had happened, planning for the next attack, and considering how to make humans stronger in the galaxy. The vampire approached him, her eyes reflecting pride and a hint of relief. "You have done well," she said softly. "You have proven that humans are capable of more than anyone ever believed. But remember, this is only the beginning. The galaxy will not forgive weakness. And now it knows what humans can become." The battle had shown him that intelligence, strategy, and courage were as important as physical power. Humans were underestimated, but he had shown that they could rise above their limits. He also realized that the fear he inspired could be both a weapon and a responsibility. The galaxy would watch him, and everything he did would set an example for his kind. Over the next days, Elias focused on rebuilding. The colony had suffered damage, but the survivors' morale was high. They had seen firsthand what humans could achieve when led by someone who understood both power and strategy. Elias trained them, teaching them to anticipate attacks, to use their environment creatively, and to work as a team. He also began to plan for alliances with neighboring colonies, understanding that survival in the galaxy required unity. One afternoon, while surveying the repaired colony, Elias sensed an unusual presence. A group of aliens approached, but they did not attack. Instead, they carried messages, gifts, and signs of respect. They had heard of his victories and wished to establish communication. Elias met with their leaders, carefully listening and learning about their societies, strengths, and weaknesses. He realized that diplomacy, intelligence, and understanding were as crucial as fighting. Humans could rise not just through power, but through leadership, strategy, and moral courage. The vampire watched quietly as Elias engaged with the alien leaders. She had guided him in battle, but now she saw him grow into a leader. His confidence, intelligence, and fairness were inspiring. She had given him strength, but it was his human qualities, determination, ingenuity, and compassion that made him extraordinary. As night fell, Elias walked through the colony, reflecting on what had happened. The attacks had tested him, forced him to grow, and shown him the potential of humans. He realized that fear could be used wisely to protect the innocent, but it should never dictate actions. Strength must be guided by intelligence and morality. The vampire approached him, her expression serious. Elias, you have learned much, but the galaxy is watching. There will be those who will seek to challenge you, to test your resolve, and to fear what you have become. Are you prepared for that? I will show the galaxy that humans are not weak, that they can rise above anything. Lead with courage, intelligence, and heart. The days turned into weeks, and Elias continued to strengthen the colony, train the survivors, and build alliances. He became a symbol of hope, a figure who showed that humans could rise above fear, adversity, and the limitations imposed by others. The galaxy began to notice, and whispers of his deeds spread far and wide. One evening, Elias stood atop the cliffs overlooking Thera 7, the twin moons casting a pale light over the landscape. He thought about the challenges he had faced, the battles he had won, and the lessons he had learned. Humans were no longer the fragile, underestimated species the galaxy believed them to be. They were strong, intelligent, and capable of greatness. The vampire stood beside him, her presence a comforting reminder of what had started this journey. Elias, she said softly, you have done more than survive. You have proven that humans can rise above. But the galaxy is vast, and there will be others who test you. You must remain vigilant, strong, and wise. I will not fail. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with danger, challenges, and unknown threats. But for the first time, he felt truly ready. He had inherited extraordinary power, yes, but he also possessed courage, intelligence, and compassion, the qualities that would define him and his kind. And somewhere in the shadows, the vampire watched, knowing that the rise of humanity had only just begun, and that Elias, the human who had inherited her blood, would lead them to a future that the galaxy had never imagined. The galaxy was slowly beginning to change. News of Elias' victories had traveled far beyond Thera 7, reaching planets that had never thought of humans as anything more than fragile creatures. Now, whispers of the human who had inherited the blood of the last vampire were spreading across star systems. Some called him a hero, others a monster, but everyone agreed on one thing. Elias was powerful, and humans were no longer weak. Elias felt the weight of responsibility more heavily than ever. It was not enough to fight and survive. He had to think about the future of humanity. Colonies needed protection, alliances had to be formed, and the galaxy had to understand that humans could rise without conquering or destroying. He realized that diplomacy, leadership, and strategy were now just as important as strength and combat. The vampire stood beside him silently as they watched a holographic map of nearby star systems. The lines connecting colonies, trade routes, and known alien territories glowed faintly in the dim light. You cannot fight every battle, Elias, she said softly. Humans have strength, yes, but they also have reason, intelligence, and adaptability. Use these, and you will change more than a single planet. You will change the galaxy. The first challenge came in the form of a distant colony under threat from a merciless alien faction known as the Korvath. The humans there were unprepared, their defenses weak, and their leaders hesitant to act. Elias knew that he could easily fly in, defeat the attackers, and leave the colony unharmed. But he also knew that this would not teach them to protect themselves or inspire other human settlements. He needed a different approach. He gathered a group of volunteers from Thera 7, humans who had seen his power firsthand and were willing to follow his guidance. Together, they traveled in a sleek transport ship, moving quickly across space. Elias trained them during the journey, teaching them how to anticipate attacks, use the terrain to their advantage, and communicate silently in the heat of battle. Each human learned faster than expected, inspired by Elias' confidence and strategy. When they arrived, the Korvath were already attacking, tearing through the colony with brutal efficiency. Buildings burned and civilians ran in panic. Elias and his group landed at a distance, unseen by the enemy. He surveyed the battlefield, his enhanced senses allowing him to detect the positions, strengths, and weaknesses of every Korvath fighter. "This is not just a fight," Elias said quietly to his team. "This is a chance to show them that humans can protect themselves. Follow my lead, and we will change how they see us." Civilians, inspired by the humans' skill and bravery, helped where they could, moving supplies, guiding the injured, and reinforcing defenses. The Korvath were confused. They had expected easy prey, humans who would panic and flee. Instead, they found intelligent opponents, organized and adaptable. Elias moved with almost supernatural speed, disabling the alien leaders one by one while his team handled the remaining forces. The battle lasted hours, but by nightfall, the Korvath had been defeated, retreating into space with fear and caution etched into their faces. The colony celebrated, hailing Elias and his team as heroes. But Elias' eyes were on the horizon. He knew that victory in a single battle did not secure the future. Humans needed to grow stronger, unite, and prepare for the threats yet to come. He gathered the colony's leaders, speaking to them about cooperation, strategy, and self-reliance. His words were simple, but their meaning was clear. Humans could survive, prosper, and even thrive if they worked together and learned to think beyond fear. Days later, as he trained with his team, the vampire approached him quietly. "You are doing more than protecting humans," she said. "You are teaching them to lead themselves. This is how humanity will rise, not through fear, but through wisdom, courage, and determination. But the galaxy is watching, and not all who see you will be friendly. You will face choices that test your morality and patience. Remember, the path of leadership is never easy." Some alien factions would seek to manipulate him, others to destroy him, and some humans might resist change. Every decision he made could shape the destiny of entire worlds. His next challenge arrived unexpectedly. A delegation from a technologically advanced alien species, the Vorin, requested an audience. Their fleet was massive, their ships designed for war, yet they approached without aggression. Elias sensed curiosity and caution from their leaders. They had heard of him, and they wanted to test if humanity could be reasoned with, if humans were capable of leadership beyond their own colonies. The vampire accompanied him to the meeting, standing silently as Elias stepped forward to greet the Vorin leaders. His presence commanded attention, not because of his inherited strength alone, but because of the confidence, calm, and intelligence he displayed. "I am Elias of Thyra 7, he said, his voice steady and clear. "Humans are not weak. We can protect ourselves, cooperate with others, and face the dangers of the galaxy together. I ask for dialogue, not war, cooperation, not fear, and I offer my guidance to help build trust between our peoples." Instead, they found a species capable of reasoning, courage, and vision. After hours of discussion, they agreed to a limited alliance, promising to share resources and knowledge with human colonies. Elias understood that this alliance was fragile, but it was a start. Trust could be built, and humanity's place in the galaxy could expand without bloodshed or conquest. As Elias returned to Thyra 7, he reflected on the lessons of the day. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but humans had a chance to rise not through fear alone, but through intelligence, morality, and unity. His powers made him extraordinary, but it was his humanity that would ultimately define him. Weeks passed, and Elias continued to strengthen colonies, negotiate alliances, and prepare humanity for the challenges ahead. He trained not only in combat, but in strategy, diplomacy, and leadership. Every decision he made shaped the perception of humans across the galaxy. Aliens who once dismissed them now treated them with respect, and some even sought guidance on how to live and work in harmony. One night, Elias stood on a cliff overlooking Thyra 7. The stars stretched endlessly above him, and the twin moons bathed the landscape in soft light. He thought of the battles, the alliances, and the lessons he had learned. Humans had the potential to rise not because of supernatural gifts alone, but because of courage, intelligence, and morality. The vampire joined him, her expression calm but thoughtful. "You have done well," she said softly, "but there will always be those who doubt, who seek to challenge you, and who fear what humans can become. Are you ready for that?" "I am ready. I will protect humans, guide them, and show the galaxy what we are capable of. We will rise, not through domination, but through intelligence, courage, and unity. You will face trials that test your morality, your patience, and your resolve. Never forget who you are, and never forget what humans can achieve." He had inherited extraordinary power, but it was his human qualities, determination, intelligence, and compassion, that would truly define his legacy. As the night deepened, Elias stood with the vampire beside him, looking at the stars and imagining the possibilities. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and opportunity, but he felt ready. Humans could rise above fear, adversity, and misunderstanding. They could lead, inspire, and protect. And Elias, the human who had inherited the blood of the last vampire, would guide them into a future that no one had dared to imagine. Somewhere in the shadows, the vampire watched, knowing that the rise of humanity had only just begun, and that Elias' choices in the coming days would determine not only his fate, but the destiny of every human colony in the galaxy. The galaxy had changed. Humans were no longer seen as weak, scattered, or insignificant. Stories of Elias' deeds had spread from star system to star system, reaching worlds that had never thought of humans as anything more than fragile creatures. Some admired him, others feared him, but all had learned one undeniable truth. Humans could rise, and Elias was proof. Despite the victories, Elias knew the greatest challenge was still ahead. A coalition of alien factions, alarmed by humanity's sudden strength and his extraordinary abilities, had begun to gather. They were determined to crush the human threat before it could spread further. The fleet approaching Thera 7 was massive, its engines humming with destructive intent, and Elias sensed the tension radiating from every ship. This was not a simple raid or test. It was a war designed to eliminate humanity's growing influence. The vampire stood beside him silently as they surveyed the approaching armada. Her expression was unreadable, but Elias could sense the concern beneath her calm exterior. "This will be your greatest test," she said quietly. "Not just your strength, but your intelligence, your leadership, and your humanity will be tested. The galaxy is watching. You must rise to meet it." This was about the survival of humanity itself, and the way he acted now could determine the fate of countless lives across countless worlds. He turned to the survivors and allies he had trained, speaking with the authority and confidence that had become his hallmark. "Today, we face those who think humans are weak. They underestimate us, and that is their mistake. We will protect ourselves, our homes, and our future. We will fight, not just with strength, but with intelligence, strategy, and courage. Together, we will show the galaxy what humanity can become." They set traps, reinforced defenses, and coordinated with each other in a way that rivaled the most disciplined alien armies. Elias moved among them, guiding, teaching, and inspiring, ensuring that every human understood their role and their potential. When the alien fleet descended, the battle began with a fury that shook the planet. Beams of energy streaked across the sky, explosions rocked the ground, and the screams of combat echoed through the colony. Elias moved like a force of nature, his enhanced senses and strength allowing him to dodge attacks, neutralize weapons, and protect civilians. He could hear the intentions of his enemies, anticipate their moves, and strike with precision that seemed almost supernatural. But Elias knew that sheer power alone would not win this battle. He directed his human allies with calm efficiency, positioning them strategically to exploit weaknesses in the alien formation. The survivors moved with courage and intelligence, inspired by Elias' example. Civilians guided supplies, reinforced defenses, and used ingenuity to turn the terrain into a weapon against the attackers. Hours passed and the battle raged on. The aliens were powerful, but they were also arrogant. They had assumed that humans could not think, could not adapt, and could not unite. Elias used this arrogance against them, leading the fleet into traps, striking at command vessels, and isolating enemy ships from one another. Each move was calculated, precise, and effective. At the heart of the alien armada, Elias faced the fleet's leader, a massive warship bristling with weapons and shielding that would have crushed any ordinary human. He studied it, analyzing every system, every pattern, and every weak point. Using his heightened perception, he moved with incredible speed and precision, disabling key components and avoiding destruction. The vampire assisted, striking with unmatched skill, her movements complementing his in perfect harmony. The humans watched from below, witnessing the incredible display of strategy, courage, and power. They cheered, inspired not just by Elias' abilities, but by his leadership, intelligence, and moral courage. It became clear to everyone present that humans were no longer prey. They were protectors, leaders, and a force to be reckoned with. Finally, after hours of intense combat, the alien fleet was defeated. Ships retreated, engines failing, morale broken. The colony stood victorious. Elias looked over the battlefield, exhaustion weighing on him, but also a profound sense of accomplishment. The humans had not only survived, they had risen, proving that they could stand against even the most powerful threats in the galaxy. The vampire approached him, her expression softening. "You have done more than fight," she said. "You have inspired humans to believe in themselves, to rise above fear, and to embrace the potential within them. This is your greatest victory yet." In the days that followed, Elias focused on consolidating the victories. He traveled to nearby colonies, sharing strategies, training leaders, and forming alliances. Each interaction reinforced the idea that humans could protect themselves, work together, and build a future without relying solely on one individual. His presence inspired hope, courage, and unity. Humans were no longer seen as weak. They were leaders, thinkers, and protectors. During one such visit, Elias met with representatives of an alien species that had once been hostile to humans. The discussions were tense, but Elias remained calm, using reason, intelligence, and diplomacy to forge understanding. Slowly, distrust turned to respect, and respect turned to collaboration. He realized that leadership was not just about strength in battle, but about winning hearts and minds, building trust, and guiding others toward a shared future. The vampire watched him during these moments, silently proud. She had given him power, yes, but it was his human qualities, compassion, intelligence, and courage, that truly defined him. He was becoming not just a hero, but a symbol of what humanity could achieve when guided by wisdom and morality. One night, as Elias stood on the cliffs overlooking a human colony thriving under his guidance, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the day the vampire had given him her blood, the first battle on Thera 7, and every lesson learned along the way. He realized that power alone was meaningless without purpose, and that humanity's true strength lay in courage, intelligence, and unity. The vampire approached him, her presence a comforting shadow against the stars. "You have proven that humans can rise," she said softly. "But the galaxy is vast, and challenges will continue to come. You must continue to guide, protect, and inspire. Humans are capable of greatness, Elias, and you are the proof. And I will be there to guide them every step of the way." Human colonies prospered, alien alliances grew stronger, and the galaxy began to take notice of humanity's rise. Elias continued to train, lead, and inspire, never losing sight of the responsibility that came with power. He understood that fear could be a tool, but only when guided by wisdom. He knew that strength without morality was dangerous, and he committed himself to using his abilities for the greater good. One evening, as he walked through a bustling human settlement, children ran past him laughing, soldiers trained under his guidance, and leaders from different colonies consulted with him on strategy. Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Humanity was no longer fragile or underestimated. They were rising, and he had helped them see their true potential. The vampire joined him, her expression calm but proud. "Look at what you have accomplished," she said. "You have not only protected humans, but you have shown them what they are capable of. The galaxy will never see humanity the same way again. Then you have fulfilled the promise of my gift. You have shown that humans can rise above fear, adversity, and limitation, and you have done it with heart, wisdom, and courage." He knew that challenges would continue, that enemies would rise, and that humanity's journey was far from over. But he also knew that humans could meet any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and rise to greatness. He turned to the vampire, gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for giving me this chance." The gift was not just the blood, Elias. The gift was faith in you and in humanity. You have proven that they can rise, and that is a legacy no one can take away. He knew that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but he was ready. Humans were no longer the underestimated species of old. They were leaders, protectors, and a rising force in the galaxy. And somewhere in the quiet shadows, the vampire watched, knowing that her final gift had created something extraordinary. A human who had not only inherited power, but had used it to show the galaxy the true potential of his kind. Elias stood on the cliffs, the wind blowing through his hair, looking at the thriving colony below and the stars beyond. The galaxy was vast, but humans had risen. And with courage, intelligence, and unity, they would continue to rise, shaping their destiny and proving that even the smallest and most underestimated species could achieve greatness beyond imagination. The future was theirs, and Elias, the human who had inherited the blood of the last vampire, would lead them. guide them, and inspire them to rise higher than ever before. Humanity had proven itself, and the galaxy would never forget it.